Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
You can put it on the board. Yes! He could go all the way.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA, prime Angus, and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those massive and gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right, a big welcome in, everybody listening in on all of our network affiliates, radio, television, all of our streamers as well, and everybody on Facebook, watching on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Thanks for joining us here. A fun group. Talk about your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes, your favorite foods. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Check it out, folks. Also, our friends over at Vacation Buddies are giving away a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or in Branson, Missouri, if you can answer a very simple trivia question. Here it is. Which of these three is the tallest structure in Las Vegas? Is it A, the Eiffel Tower at the Paris Hotel and Casino? Is it B, the Fontainebleau Hotel and Casino? Or is it C, the Stratosphere Tower at the Strat? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Vegas, Orlando, or in Branson, Missouri. If you can answer that very, very simple trivia question, 888-576-5777. Call now. All right. College football. It's that time, and we have to go over college football. Week 9. And we're going to start out with the rankings. Now, there's a little bit of controversy. I don't even care which teams or which schools got any votes. I'm just going to go from the top 25 up to number 1. We're going from number 25 to number 1. And occupying the 25th spot, previously unranked, are the Memphis Tigers. They have that record at 7-1. These guys are pretty darn good. And they beat a pretty good South Florida team 34-31 in the last week. And I have to tell you, Memphis outscored South Florida 17-0 in the fourth to complete its second straight 2-touchdown comeback this season. I mean, look, these guys are pretty darn good, and they've got those really cool hats, too. It looks like the Cincinnati Bengals, but they're the Memphis Tigers. Occupying spot number 24, previously unranked, are the Utes. Two Utes from the University of Utah. They're 6-2. They destroyed Deion Sanders' Colorado Buffaloes 53-7. Now, Utah led Colorado 43-0 at halftime. That's the largest halftime lead without allowing a point by any Big 12 team since 2011. That's a conference game. Now, that is one hell of a feat. Now, by the way, coming up next for Utah is going to be a very pesky and a very good Cincinnati Bearcat club. Coming in number 23 are the Trojans of the University of Southern California, previously unranked. They're up to 5-2 now, and they're sitting in a pretty good spot in the Big Ten, and they didn't play over the weekend, but coming up next, basically having 2 weeks to rest for that next matchup at Nebraska. That's going to be on NBC at 7:30 p.m. local time. Number 22, the Houston Cougars, previously unranked, a very good squad, but they went in and played Arizona State with Arizona State missing some key personnel. Now, Houston is 7-1 for the first time in 4 years. Up next for them is a date with the Mountaineers of West Virginia. That's going to be on Fox Sports 1, noon local time. Coming in at number 21 with a score bigger than 31-20. They beat Michigan State like a drum. And they were ranked 25th. Now they're ranked 21st. Michigan is now bowl eligible for the 5th straight season. No big surprise there. And unfortunately for me, because I am a Purdue undergrad, that's who they have next week. And that's going to be on the Big Ten Network, 7 p.m. local time. That doesn't look good for the Boilermakers. Coming in at number 20, who was once ranked number 1, are the Texas Longhorns. Well, you want to talk about a colossal, disappointing season, in my opinion. They've got 2 losses, which week 1 was against those guys from Columbus, Ohio. And that was only a 14-7 loss. It wasn't a big deal. But I think Texas was terribly, terribly overrated in the first place. They're 6-2 right now. Previous ranking 22, they jump up 2 slots to number 20. They did beat Miss State and the Cowbells 45-38 in an overtime shootout. Now against Miss State, Texas was down by 17 in the fourth quarter. So they showed a little resiliency, but boy, does Texas have their hands full because they've got the Commodores from Vanderbilt coming up at noon local time. That's going to be held on the SEC network. Coming in at number 19, dropping 4 slots, are the Missouri Tigers. They are also 6-2, but they lost a 7-point game, a tough game to Vanderbilt. And I got to tell you, Vanderbilt is a hell of a lot tougher than what people may know. And remember, Vanderbilt's only loss was at Alabama, and that was a nail-biter. Nonetheless, back to Missouri. Missouri is a very good squad. They are 6-2. Both Missouri starting quarterbacks left the game with injuries. Now Horn, who is actually Sam Horn, is out for the season. So they're going to be stuck with Bo Prabula, maybe a third-string quarterback. We don't know. So with Missouri having to play Texas A&M, they've got essentially 2 weeks to get themselves well. Maybe Bo will find himself back in the healthy circle, and he'll probably be the starting quarterback against Texas A&M, which I got to tell you, I'm having a hard time figuring out Texas A&M. Every time I think they're only a defensive squad, somehow they ring up 30, 40 points. I'm not really sure how that happens, but nonetheless, Missouri's going to have their hands full on November 8th against Texas A&M. Who the heck knows what's going to happen there? Now, coming in at number 18, and they were beat soundly, is Oklahoma. They dropped from number 13 to number 18. Their record also goes to 6-2. Ole Miss, they only beat them 34-26, but Ole Miss actually beat them on the stat sheet. They beat them on the field, and they beat them. They were their whipping boys, essentially. Now, Xavier Robinson's 109-yard rushing really is the most by an Oklahoma player this season. So pass, that's really all it is. And Oklahoma really doesn't play a lot of defense. Coming up next for them, it doesn't get any easier because they hit the road over to Rocky Top, and they're going to play Tennessee at 7:30 p.m. local time. And that's going to be carried over ABC. Number 17 is the Cincinnati Bearcats. Now, I mentioned them earlier, and a very pesky and a very good Bearcat team. They doubled up the Baylor Bears 41-20 in their game. Cincinnati moves to 7-1. They jump up 4 slots. but they beat an unranked Baylor team. But Cincinnati's a hell of a lot better than what people think. And they're on a 7-game win streak, its second longest streak over the past 5 seasons. Up next for them, they're going to have their hands full playing at Utah. And that's going to be carried over the 4-letter network at 10:15 p.m., and that's Eastern time. So, number 16 are the Louisville Cardinals. We're going to stop here before we go to break. The Louisville Cardinals had jumped up 3 slots. They're 6-1 now, and they beat a Boston College team, which really doesn't amount to too terribly much right now. However, Louisville is 6-1 for the second time in 3 seasons under Jeff Brom. Now, Jeff Brom came over from Purdue, and Jeff Brom's one hell of a coach, and he wanted to go back home where he was basically coaching before, where he went to school. So up next for Louisville are the Hokies from Vatech, and that's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern time on the CW. So Louisville at Vatech. That's going to be one hell of a game. But you never know what you're going to get when Vatech hits the field. Sometimes they really show up. It kind of reminds me of watching Syracuse. Syracuse, sometimes they are world beaters, and sometimes they look awful. But in this case, that game, Louisville and Vatech, that's going to sort out a lot in the conference. And you think of what's happening in the ACC. We're going to get to the standings in the next segment. And I don't know. This will rank in one of those games that really mean a lot. All right, back here in a few minutes. Going to start at number 15. When we come back, lots more to come. Sticking with the ACC. Don't go anywhere.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. Nice round of applause for them. All right, and a big welcome back to everybody. Thanks for everybody coming back with us over in Atlanta, driving home or driving on your way to work, listening in on WDJY 99.1 FM over in Auburn, Alabama. Thanks for driving home with us. Listening in on WAUD, that's home of the Atlanta Braves. Welcome in everybody else up and down the heartland, out to the West Coast, those driving between LA and Las Vegas, listening in on Highway Country Radio along Interstate 15, and that's 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM out to LA, up to the Seattle, up to Anchorage, over to Honolulu, CBS Sports 1500 KHKA, that's home of the San Francisco 49ers, the New York Yankees, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. And, of course, everybody else watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild, Charter, and independent cable affiliates in select markets. Thanks for joining us there, as well as Hotel TV where applicable. And, of course, everybody on streaming platforms. By the way, folks, if you're just tuning in the first segment, we made an announcement for Vacation Buddies. They're giving away a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas or in Branson, Missouri, or in Orlando, Florida, if you can answer a simple trivia question. Now, if you missed it, you're just tuning in right now, I'll repeat the question, and you can go ahead and call if you know the answer. Which of these three structures is the tallest in Las Vegas? Is it the Eiffel Tower at the Paris Hotel and Casino, the Fontainebleau Hotel and Casino, or the tower, the Stratosphere Tower at the Strat? Now, in case you don't know, if you're not from here, I will tell you that the Fontainebleau Hotel is the tallest hotel. I don't know if it's the tallest structure, but it's the tallest hotel. But it could also be the tallest structure. And, of course, the Eiffel Tower is the Eiffel Tower. That's over at the Paris. And then you have the Stratosphere Tower, which is a standalone next to the actual hotel itself. If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or in Orlando, Florida. If you know the answer, 888-576-5777. Call now. All right, so we left off in the last segment talking about the top 25 according to the Associated Press, and we left off with number 15, and I said I was going to stick with the ACC, and I am sticking with the ACC because it's the Cavaliers of Virginia, a quality squad that struggled mightily against Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels. And it was an overtime win, I'll have you know, 17-16. That's the lowest overtime score I've seen in college football, I think, ever. And they basically went up one click from 16 to 15 for that. They are 7-1. And Virginia's, well, they've won 6 straight games, the longest streak within a season for the last, 18 years for them. Up next for them, they stay within the conference, believe it or not, against the Cal Bears. So it's really funny to imagine the University of California, Berkeley, in the Atlantic Coast Conference, as well as Stanford, and as well as SMU as well. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. But then again, money, and that's really what happened. All right, so the Cavaliers are somehow in the 15th spot. And I have to tell you, I believe looking up and down, just the teams below them, I think Oklahoma is a better squad, although they have 2 losses. Missouri is certainly a better squad, but they're 2 very tough losses. And I would probably consider putting the Utah Utes ahead of the Virginia Cavaliers. So whoever's making these, I think the committee, man, they got it wrong. Now, Tennessee jumped up 3 slots with their win against Kentucky, and they really poured it on against Kentucky. So Tennessee is up to 6-2. They were previously 17th. They jump up 3 slots. Now, the win over Kentucky was their 3rd game with 3 passing touchdowns and 4 rushing touchdowns this season. That's a lot, man. That's a lot of offense. That puts them in a tie with Oregon for the most such games in the FBS in this entire season. Now, what's next for Tennessee? This game, they could score possibly 100 points in it because it's going to be Tennessee and Oklahoma. 2 teams that score a lot, and it seems to me that they don't play a lot of defense. So you could see one of those, 51-50 kind of a games. I have no idea, but I suspect whatever the over and under is, it's probably going to be somewhere in the 75 range. I suspect they're going to score 90 to 100 points in that game. Now, that seems rather feasible. Tennessee is better than a 14th ranked team, but sometimes they just seem to fall asleep at the wheel, and I don't really understand it. I guess it's not for me to understand, but they are certainly better than that 14th ranked. Now, just above them, going from 14 to 13, are the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. Of course, you could have always caught the Sports Circus on Raider Radio at Texas Tech University as well. We had a press release come out a while back on that one, and we really want to thank Texas Tech University for working with us. Very, very nice people over there. Very nice people over there. All right, now they also are 7-1. And they beat Oak State, just like a drum, 42-0. I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to say the flat 0. Now, the win over Oak State was Texas Tech's first shutout against a Big 12 opponent in 20 years. So you have to ask, what is more important or what's more significant, the shutout or the fact they scored 42? And the 42 was on the road. So the bigger question is, what's more important? I think the shutout is more important. I don't care how many points they scored. Even though Oak State right now is not that good of a team, you have to pitch a shutout when you can. So therefore, they're 13 and they're 7-1. Now, number 12, they didn't even do anything last week. Well, guess what? They didn't jump up or fall down in the ranking, which there's room for discussion on this one. So these guys, Notre Dame, those guys are number 12, guys from South Bend. Up next to them is another doormat in Boston College. That's 3:30 Eastern Time. That one's actually going to be carried on the 4-letter network rather than their broadcasting station. They didn't play last week, so they have 2 weeks to prepare for BC. And boy, me personally, I would love to see BC just beat the brakes off them. But BC is not a good team right now. Unfortunately, that's kind of what happens. So moving on to, we'll say number 10 and 11. We have a tie. And we're going to give this to the Brigham Young Cougars. So BYU, they are undefeated. And boy, these guys are good. Previously ranked 11, so we'll call them 10. These guys are good. They're 8-0. They beat Iowa State at Iowa State 41-27. But it's not that they beat them. It's how they beat them. And they beat them in Ames, Iowa. Now look, this is BYU's first time starting 8-0 in back-to-back seasons. So these guys are defensive driven. Now they're going to have to take that defense down to Lubbock, Texas, and they're going to have to play the Red Raiders, who I just mentioned, who are at number 13. But they're going to have 2 weeks to prepare for this game. So they're going to be ready for Texas Tech, and they're going to be healthy. So when BYU rolls into Lubbock, Texas, it ought to be offensive strength against defensive strength. The bigger question is, How strong will BYU's offense be? Because, I mean, look, they do score 30, 40 points a game. They score a lot of points, just like Texas Tech. But now look what Texas Tech did in their previous game. They won 42-0. So they pitched a shutout defensively against a very, very weak squad. However, Brigham Young, they scored 41 versus the 42 that Texas Tech scored. And Texas Tech had 1 point more, but they gave up 0 on defense, whereas BYU gave up 27, but to a pretty darn good squad in Iowa State. I'm going to give the edge to Brigham Young on that game. Number 10 is going to be, actually, yeah, we're going to give number 10 to Miami because there's a tie for 10 and 11. Miami, previously ranked 9th, we're just going to call them 10th. And even though they won, somehow they fall down a ranking. So I'm really not sure how that happened with their win against a very weak Stanford team. But you have to play who's on your schedule. I mean, look, Miami outscored Stanford 42-0 after allowing an opening touchdown. That's it. So Miami woke up and they said, all right, we're 6-1. And oh, by the way, the reason Brigham Young is ahead of them, because they're undefeated at 8-0. It's the lowest undefeated team in the rankings. So actually, we'll put Miami behind them. Anyway, what's next for them is a date in Dallas against SMU. So Miami's going to have their hands full with that one. Real quick, we're going to cover the Vanderbilt Commodores and number 9. They went from number 10 to number 9. Had a real nice win against Missouri. And it's Vanderbilt's first 7-1 start since 1941. That is incredibly impressive. Now, Vanderbilt is going to have their hands full, or better yet, I think it's really going to be Texas with their hands full. That's going to be next Saturday on the SEC Network at noon. Boy, that ought to be one hell of a game. Vanderbilt at Austin, Texas. Boy, that'll be a real good one. When we come back here from break, we're going to go to number 8, and we're going to go right back to the ACC. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on The Circus.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days, and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Investors, keep listening to learn how to get your free gold report. A currency crisis is upon us. The U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency for over 50 years, but that is changing. It's time to protect your retirement. Decades of reckless borrowing and spending have critically weakened the dollar. The U.S. has become the world's biggest debtor with over $35 trillion in debt. Plus, the dollar's become weaponized. Countries are dumping it. Investors who wait until it's too late could lose big. There is one safe haven: gold. Diversify your portfolio with a physical asset they can't take away. Call the Reagan Gold Group right now and ask for your free gold guide. Here's our number:
800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. That's 800-876-7041.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guest, our prior guest. Also, check out the partners page. Lots of great partners over there. Our favorite is Al's Number One Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Check them out at alsbeef.com, folks, if you can't get over there for some great food over in Chicago's Little Italy, 1079 West Taylor Street. Again, alsbeef.com if you can't get over there, alsbeef.com. And you can read all about their creation of arguably the best sandwich in America, which is the Italian beef sandwich. Some people don't know about it. Some people know the Philly cheesesteak sandwich, but it's a very different animal. This one's real cooking, unlike the fried sandwich that they slap a cheap cut in Philadelphia of some kind of a meat product and they toss it in there with some onions and slap some cheese whiz on it, throw it on a bun and send you on your way. Whereas the Italian beef, it's actually 22 hours of real cooking involved, and boy, is it good. Check it out again at alsbeef.com. You can read about it. These are the creators way back 117 years ago. They've been in business. They started their restaurant in 1938, and they're still doing it. That's Al's Number One Italian Beef. All right, welcome back to everybody. You know you are streaming on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, Stitcher, YouTube, you name it. We're there. You can't get away from us. Of course, everybody else on TV and radio, thanks for joining us there as well. And we're going to jump right back into the top 25. We left off with the number 9 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores. And now we're going to go to number 8, previously number 7. Somehow they dropped 1, which is yet another undefeated team, just like Brigham Young. Somehow, Georgia Tech, they fell 1 slot from 7 to 8, defeating a quality opponent, mind you, on the road at Syracuse. Georgia Tech, somehow they dropped 1 slot by winning by 25 on the road. And let's face it, Georgia Tech is 8-0 for the first time, in, 59 years? I mean, that's crazy. But Georgia Tech is legit. Up next for them is a date over in Raleigh against the Wolfpack of NC State. That's going to be on the Deuce at 7:30 Eastern Time. Number 7, who I think is a hell of a lot better than number 7, but we're going to give it to the Ole Miss Rebels. They go up from 8 to number 7, and they go into Norman, Oklahoma. They beat Oklahoma 34-26 on the road. And now Ole Miss is 3-0 against Oklahoma. Imagine that. That's pretty good. What's next for them? They have the pesky Gamecocks of South Carolina that took Alabama all the way to the brink. I'll tell you what, Alabama was awfully lucky to beat South Carolina. So Ole Miss gets them at home. Ole Miss is a team that, boy, they score a lot of points. And again, this could be one of those 50 to 17 type of a games. I think if there's an over and under, I'm going to guess the over and under is going to probably be closer to 58, 59. Ole Miss really runs it up, and they're good. They're fun to watch. They do play a little bit of defense, but if you can hold Oklahoma to a few touchdowns, that's pretty darn good. Oklahoma's number 7. Number 6 are the Oregon Ducks. They remain unchanged. They were at 6 before. They're 7-1. Their only loss is to Indiana. I'm going to get to them in a little bit. So Oregon plays at home, or better yet, they beat Wisconsin 21-7, and that game was at Oregon. That's right. And now Oregon, of course, 6-0 against unranked opponents this season, and of course that doesn't really matter. Now it doesn't, because their one loss was against Indiana, and that was at home 30-20, and Indiana beat them soundly. But up next for Oregon is a very tough match, and that's going to be over in Iowa. They're going to play the Hawkeyes, who are a very good brand of defense. Now, number 5 are the Georgia Bulldogs. They did not play over the weekend. They remain number 5. They're still at 6-1. Up next for them is the game in Jacksonville. That's the typical in that game, and that is always a tough game. It doesn't matter what the rankings are. It doesn't matter what the records are. Florida will show up for that game, and don't be surprised if Florida doesn't upset the Georgia Bulldogs. That's going to be played 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Number 4, Alabama. As I said, they were awfully lucky to get past South Carolina. 29-22. That was a very tight game. In fact, Alabama trailed by 8 in the fourth quarter. That's their largest fourth quarter comeback in the last 4 years, and that was against Auburn, unfortunately. So they were number 4. They're still number 4. But at number 3 is Texas A&M. They remain number 3 with a record of 8-0. They beat LSU, and they beat them handily, 49-25. And, of course, Brian Kelly, who, in my opinion, was the wrong hire at LSU in the first place. That guy's gone anyway. They say, "Get out of here!" That's right. You're out. So Brian Kelly is out. LSU hunting for their next coach. Rightfully so. He was never the guy in the first place. Anyway, Texas A&M, somehow they're scoring a lot of points. Whatever they did over there, I got to tell you, they were a team that would only play on the defensive side, but now they're starting to score points, and A&M's looking pretty darn competitive at undefeated 8-0. Up next for them is a trip to Columbia, Missouri, and that's going to be a good defensive game between the two. The difference is Missouri is missing at least one of their starting quarterbacks. Coming in at number 2, which I absolutely don't agree with this one bit, is number 2 Indiana. Previously number 2, ranked 8, or their record is 8-0. They beat UCLA like, now pick your favorite analogy, doesn't even matter. They smoked them 56-6. This is the third 8-0 start in program history for Indiana. Up next for them, they're headed over to Maryland, and that's a pretty tough place to play. Now, I don't know if you've been watching what's been going on over there in Maryland, but those guys are legit. They play a really tough brand of football. That's not going to be a cakewalk for those guys. But Indiana will win that game. That's a 3:30 Eastern Time CBS game. And number 1, which I absolutely, again, don't agree with this, are the same guys from Columbus. They're 7-0, whereas Indiana is 8-0. I'm going to dig into those two in just a minute. They didn't play last week. Up next for them, they're going to play at home against lowly Penn State. So all they have to do is basically show up, and they'll end up hanging on to their slot no matter what happens here. So these rankings, I absolutely don't agree with, and there's a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, look, right now I don't even care about the standings. I want to talk about these two teams. If you compare the two teams, number 1 and number 2, there are some things that absolutely stand out between them. And you ask yourself, well, wait, why is this team still number 1 when they didn't even play last week? Well, let's take a look a little at, I guess, the differences between the two teams. And frankly, I'm just flabbergasted with it. It doesn't make sense. I mean, first of all, you look at these power rankings. All right, and the power rankings are, for example, by the Four-Letter Network. All right, so these two teams are 1 and 2 in the rankings, and these two teams are 1 and 2 in the power rankings as well. And you ask yourself, well, why does one team have one less victory with the guys from Columbus? They are Ohio State. Those guys are 7-0. IU is 8-0, and IU has played, in my opinion, a better schedule. So looking at this alleged power index, right? So it measures the team's true strength on net point scales and expected point margin versus average opponent on neutral field and all this other crap. So somehow you have a 27.1 for those guys from Columbus, and IU is 25.1. Now listen, folks, I'm not rooting for them. I'm just saying it doesn't seem reasonable. I mean, geez, I went to the number one rival for IU in the first place, so I got no love for these guys. But what's fair is fair. You got an 8-0 team versus a 7-0 team. And then you've got this power ranking, which is almost a dead heat. Oregon is just a click below IU, and IU are the ones that beat them. And Alabama below them, and Notre Dame below them, and so forth. But when you look at this, you say, well, there are these calculations of winning the national championship. Ohio State at 24.7. Gee, I wonder why. And IU at 19.9. And then there's everybody else. Making the national championship game, it's 39.1 versus 35.1. Playoff percentage, actually IU has a better percentage only by 96.8 versus Ohio State at 96.4. Winning the conference, they give those guys from Columbus a 6% or a 7% chance, better chance of winning the conference. So that doesn't really make much sense. Now, to win out, it's a 7% chance because Ohio State has an easier schedule going out. So, geez, you can chop this up however you want to. And when we look at these two teams, you ask, what is the big difference? So when we come back from break, we're going to chop this up. Number 1 versus number 2. And then maybe we'll add another team in there. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on The Circus.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. That's 800-298-3173.
Owning great property is almost impossible these days. At least that's what people keep saying. They don't know about National Premier Properties. Do you have $350 or a credit card? You can own a great piece of property in a resort community. National Premier Properties has over 51 years of experience helping people just like you purchase amazing properties across the U.S. and in Mexico, Canada, the Bahamas. It takes less than 5 minutes to turn your dream into reality. Visit nationalpremierproperties.com and make it happen now.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests and our prior guests. Also, check out the store. Lots of great items, American-made items at the Sports Circus store. There's a tab right across the top. It says store. Check it out. Hats, hoodies, t-shirts, sweatpants, sweatcoats, hats. I said like beanie hats and travel mugs, coffee mugs, all kinds of neat stuff. Mouse pads, pillows, you name it, they're there. Check them out. They all have the Sports Circus logo on them. And of course, on all the cloth items, such as the clothing items and whatnot, they're embroidered on there. So lots of great items for the holidays and whatnot. Check that out again, the sportscircus.com's store. A shameless plug, of course, for the Sports Circus. All right, welcome back to everybody. TV, radio, streaming, you know who you are. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Again, make sure you check that out, folks. Fun group. Talking about your favorite foods, favorite restaurants, favorite recipes. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right, back to it. Talking about 1 versus 2. Now, I don't seem to understand how in the world that Indiana, who, again, I have no love for these guys. I have no love for either one of these clubs. But when I look at what's fair, that is what matters. And you look at these two, between 1 and 2, between Ohio State and Indiana. So they're non-conference games for those guys from Columbus. They have Texas. Yeah, they have the number 1 team. Well, preseason number 1, which really doesn't mean much. Grambling. And so they had like one of the tougher teams, then probably the easiest team. Then they played the Bobcats of Ohio. Non-conference games for Indiana was Old Dominion, Kennesaw, and Indiana State, right? So you've got a couple of doormats in there. Now the Big Ten teams and the Big Ten matchups, I should say, for Ohio State. They had Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Penn State, Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, and Michigan. Now for Indiana, they've got Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. It looks like the tougher schedule goes to Indiana. Key games, all right, for Ohio State. It was Texas, and then at Wisconsin, Penn State, which is turning into a laugher, and then the boys up north. Key games for Indiana. Illinois at Oregon, Michigan State, at Penn State, Wisconsin, and at Purdue. Right, and so the home games for Ohio State: Texas, Grambling; Ohio, Minnesota; Penn State, laughable; UCLA, and Rutgers. Pretty easy home games. And the home games for Indiana: Old Domino, Kennesaw, Indiana, easy, easy, easy. Then you have Illinois, tough; Michigan State, and UCLA. The away games for Ohio State: at Washington, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, at Purdue, at Michigan. They still got to deal with Michigan, and Purdue should be an easy win for them. But anyway, the away games for Indiana is Iowa, Oregon, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue as well. So all of that said, you have to look at these teams and say, all right, where are they strong? Where are they weak? Let's take a look at the schedule, the regular season schedule for Ohio State. So they open up with a win against Texas. Then they go ahead and they play a doormat in Grambling, home. Right? And they pile up 70 points on them. So be it. They should have scored 100. Then they play the Bobcats of Ohio, who are in the Mid-American Conference, if I'm not mistaken. Another easy win for them. Then they hit the road. They play at Washington. They win 24-6. Pretty good win. They play home against Minnesota, and they stomp them 42-3. Then they play at Illinois, and they win a pretty good game at 34-16. Then they go to Wisconsin at Camp Randall, who Wisconsin is not the same Wisconsin. They win 34-0, and that's expected. So what they have left is home against Penn State, at Purdue, home against UCLA, home against Rutgers, and then the finale at Ann Arbor. So what is a game that they could lose? Well, it would probably be the game at Ann Arbor. And you never know. UCLA may show up. Boy, UCLA is turned out to be giant killers. I mean, they've had a couple of really big wins. Now let's take a look at Indiana. Now, Indiana has a pretty good schedule. They have a very good schedule, as a matter of fact. And you ask, where is it weak? Well, I'll tell you where it's weak. They opened up a little bit weak. They played a few weak teams. Now, they opened up against Old Dominion. Old Dominion actually is a lot better than what people think. And I think, frankly, Old Dominion is probably one of those teams. If you look at the overall ranking of 136 schools, Old Dominion is probably right around 40th or 45th or something like that. Pretty good team. Kennesaw State, a pretty good squad as well, even though they're not high up there in the rankings or whatnot, but they're pretty darn good. And they beat them 56-9. Then they play right down the road. They play they're one of their in-state teams. I won't even call it a rival because maybe in basketball, not in football. And they destroy Indiana State 73-0, which they probably could have scored 150 in that game. But now, here's where we get to head-to-head stuff. What matters? Now, Indiana plays Illinois. Ohio State played Illinois. Ohio State played Illinois as well. They beat them, looking at the schedule, being those guys from Columbus. They beat the Fighting Illini 34-16 in a hard-fought game. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, over in Bloomington, it was Indiana dropping 63 on Illinois, 63-10. Right. I mean, that is a significant difference. Now, then Indiana goes to Iowa, and they play a very, very difficult Iowa team. They beat them on the road 20-15. Hard-fought game. Then the next week, they travel out to Eugene to play the number 3 ranked Oregon Ducks. And they beat Oregon soundly 30-20 in Oregon. Then the next week, they travel up to East Lansing to play Michigan State. Or better yet, they went home to play Michigan State, But they beat them rather easily 38-13. And of course, they beat UCLA just last week 56-6. Now, mind you, this team has scored above 50 points 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Only one time they scored 20 points. That's it. And they're winning big. Now, when you look at teams in common, they both played Illinois. Indiana smashed them. They both played who else? Nobody else. Yet. Not yet. Because Ohio State still has to play Purdue and Penn State and UCLA. Now, if you look at what Indiana has done, well, they still have to play Purdue, Penn State, and they just played UCLA with a 56-6 drudging of them. So, what do you think? Look at the rankings, and you say, well, why is it that with one less victory, does the boys from Columbus, why do they hold on to the number one spot when Indiana just keeps beating teams down unbelievably? And so you say, well, wait, I mean, UCLA is not that good of a squad. I mean, yeah, they beat them 56-6, and of course Ohio State still has to play them. But you ask, well, who has UCLA beaten? What have they actually done? Who are they going to play? What have they done, period? And you say, well, geez, they're not a bad squad. Okay, so they beat Penn State. They beat Michigan State. They beat Maryland. They lost a nail-biter to Northwestern, which they had Northwestern on the ropes. They couldn't put them away. And so are they that bad of a team? No, they're not. Of course, they get, being Ohio State, they get UCLA at home. And these guys have a shot to be bowl eligible with a couple of more wins. Why are we talking about them? Because it's a team in common. So what does Indiana not have that Ohio State has? I don't know. All I know is they have one more victory and they have more impressive wins. Sure, Ohio State went into Washington and they beat them by a narrow margin. Pretty good win. But Indiana goes to Oregon and beats Oregon soundly, who is the number 3 ranked team in the nation. And when Ohio State played at Washington, Washington's unranked. They're still unranked. They beat them 24-6. Whereas Oregon lost 30-20 to Indiana. So I make the very simple argument, never mind these power indexes and all this other crap. I mean, look, you can cut it up and chop it up however you want to. But it seems to be that Indiana, and again, I have no love for either one of these squads, but it seems as though they have basically been ripped off, in my opinion. I just don't see how in the world Indiana sits. And it's not just by 1 or 2 votes. Oh, no. No, the votes, are significant. When you look at the total votes in the AP, there is 44 votes different. Indiana got 44 less votes somehow. And I don't even know. It's 54-11 or 43 votes. How that works, I have no idea. And the coaches poll, mind you, with one more victory, they still got 74 less votes. Texas A&M even got some votes. Yeah, that's right. Texas A&M is closer to Indiana than Indiana is to Ohio State in the coaches poll. And in the AP poll, Indiana sits 66 points above Texas A&M. Somehow they sit 44 back, or 40, whatever the heck it is, behind Ohio State. Now this makes no sense. To me, as I see it, the media wants those guys from Columbus in there because they'll make more money. They have a bigger national following. Folks, that's what this is about. You think with all this crap going on right now, let me tell you something. Now, in my opinion, I can say this, in my opinion, college football games are just as compromised as the National Football League games. And we had a Super Bowl champion on our team, or on our program, come right out and say that the NFL games are all fixed in the first place. Right in prime time on this show. You'll have to search back through all the shows, and you can listen and you can hear them say it. That's right. Long story we don't have time for, but it seems like the only thing that is not going on is honesty in the gambling world, and even when it comes to the media and voting for your AP Top 25. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, I want you to think about this and you come to your own conclusion. Ask yourself why IU is not the number 1 team in America. So long, everyone.
Owning great property is almost impossible these days. At least that's what people keep saying. They don't know about National Premier Properties. Do you have $350 or a credit card? You can own a great piece of property in a resort community. National Premier Properties has over 51 years of experience helping people just like you purchase amazing properties across the U.S. and in Mexico, Canada, the Bahamas. It takes less than 5 minutes to turn your dream into reality. Visit nationalpremierproperties.com and make it happen now.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.